Well, good morning, everybody. How are you doing? It's good to see you again. I know we took the week off last week. There I am. I can hear myself. That's always a good sign. Good to be back with you again and talking animal training. And we have a very interesting topic this week. We're going to talk about stimulus preference assessment. Let's hope I say that correctly. And so this is going to be a fun topic. We got some videos to look at, and we'll talk a little bit behavior science and practical application, which is what we do here. And so let's get into it. No time to waste here. This is You Be the Behavior Consultant, a live stream I try to do almost every Monday. I was out of town last week attending a conference, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end there. And how does this crazy thing work? I present a topic for discussion, then we get some of your feedback, some of your input, and then we explore the topic a little bit more with videos and slides, and then we recap it all at the end. So we like to keep it interactive. Hopefully we've had a little bit of time for people to hop on here. I know we're getting into the holidays here, so probably it's a little bit tougher for people to participate as they're taking their time off and all that fun stuff. So what are we talking about this week? We're talking about stimulus preference assessment. What the heck is that? You're probably wondering. Basically, we're trying to find out what are the things that our animals like that we might be able to use as potential reinforcers. And probably some of you already do this already, but we're going to talk about perhaps a little bit more systematic way of identifying those potential reinforcers and why this might be beneficial to training. Good morning, Adrian. It's nice to have you back again. Haven't seen you in a while. So we're going to talk about why this might be beneficial to your training and what are some of the pitfalls to avoid when we're assessing potential reinforcers so that we can ensure we're getting an accurate evaluation. I have a little scratchy throat today, so I apologize if I have to cough a little bit or take a little sip of some beverages here to keep my throat from being all scratchy. So I'm going to cough right now. We also have the good allergens in the air this week here, so I think that might be also getting into the scratchy throat realm here. So what do you guys do? Do you have some strategies for determining preferred stimuli for your animals, things that you you're going to use to potentially reinforce behavior? Any strategies that you're already implementing, and then we're going to go into some strategies that you may not have tried before that hopefully you can consider that might be helpful to you. And you can also talk about why you might consider this beneficial to your training. You know, obviously it's nice just to have a reinforcer, but there are also some other reasons why you might find it beneficial. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied this morning. Oh my goodness. It's definitely, I think I took a little cold medicine to address my scratchy throat last night. So woo, got that cold medicine hangover this morning. What do you guys think? What are some strategies that you have considered for determining preferred stimuli that might be potential reinforcers? Okay, I'm starting to do choice participation. Which one do you want? Offer 2 items and see what they pick first. All right, there you go. That is absolutely one of our strategies, and it actually has a name. It's called paired stimuli. So we offer paired stimuli and see which one they choose first. And Adrian says, it doesn't work with my dogs, though. They like everything. Oh, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we can talk about how to work with that situation to maybe help you work out a ranking so that we can still work out what potential reinforcers may have more value than others. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's why we're doing this particular live stream, this stimulus preference assessment. So that is a really good point, because I think other people have that same challenge, that everything seems to be amazing. And that also leads into our question of why it might be beneficial to do these stimulus preference assessments. You know, having an animal that's responding to everything is, it's helpful for us to see that, but then maybe we want to know, does one have more value than the other, and how would we tease that out? So that's a really good question to ask. Anybody else have any strategies that they consider or that they try? And while I'm waiting for your responses, I'm going to take a little sip. Coat the throat. I should probably have hot tea here instead, but I'm not one of those people that drinks tea or coffee. And I think maybe, Adrian, when you're thinking about this, they don't like, Al says, observe the animal and their environment to see what reinforcers they are using for potential use in your session. Yeah, so that is absolutely a total legitimate, great strategy. We can just observe the animal in their environment and see what they engage with. What do they spend more time around? What do they gravitate towards? Right. So that is an excellent example, and they call that sort of a free operant situation. So just observe the animals, see what they like. I think that's a great example. Absolutely. Yeah, you guys are already coming up with some of the examples that are out there in behavior analysis. And thinking back on what Adrian was saying about the paired stimuli, you may think about some of the things that you have done that may make it challenging when you're trying to do that comparison, because that's one of my questions here. Like my third question there, when you're trying to evaluate what are some of the things that you've noticed maybe that makes it challenging to determine whether they like one more than the other, because we'll explore that question a little bit. Sorry, got my little cough going on here today. Any other thoughts there, guys, on other things you might have done? You've come up with some good ones already, though, I have to say. It's excellent. Excellent strategies there. Others? If I can give you some more time to type. If not, I can move on to our definition here while you're thinking. All right. While people are typing and thinking, here we go. Favorite might change on different days for some individual animals. That is an excellent point. That actually comes into our, I would say I'm putting it under sort of a category of pitfalls to avoid. We can get stuck into that mentality that whatever is a preferred item on one day is always going to be the preferred item forever. And that's a really good point, that motivating operations can change based on all sorts of things. So that is a really good point. So yes, the favorite doesn't necessarily stay the favorite under all circumstances. So an excellent point. So I'm going to read this little slide here about stimulus preference assessments and how they can help us. So they can help us determine what stimuli may act as reinforcers for behavior. And there are several different ways we can conduct stimulus preference assessments to determine potential reinforcers. And this is what Al said. An easy way is to just observe your animal. So what stimuli, and this could be items, it could be activities, people, animals, etc. Do they seek to acquire, access, explore, consume, engage with, etc. And we want to be sure to consider all types of sensory input. So this could be smell, it could be taste, it could be auditory, it could be tactile. And this can be naturally occurring in the environment, or we can create contrived opportunities in which we provide these items or experiences and then observe and record their responses. Then we have a comment here, how often do we need to perform these preference tests? That's a really great question. And this kind of ties in with what Adrian said, is that things can change on different days. And so I think that's a really good point, that it's helpful to conduct these stimulus preference assessments on a semi-regular basis to kind of have a more accurate idea of what preferences might be, because they may change depending on different conditions. All right, so kind of moving on to the next step here. So when we talked about what Al mentioned about this free operant situation, that's one condition where we can basically sort of look at what's already in the environment. just watch our animal and see what's happening. We can also kind of place some things in the environment that we may think our animal may be interested in, and kind of just see how they respond to those things. We can just observe that, right? So this is what we call our free operant situation. Adrian has a comment here. I use a wide variety of food reinforcers for my birds: pine nuts, shelled almond pieces, walnuts pieces, pistachio, sunflower seed. Also a quick scratch, cuddle. Casper too loves cold water in his cup. So you've kind of identified a wide range of things that your bird may respond to. And so what we can do with that is we can also do a little further assessment to kind of find out which of those may have more value or not to your animal, at least at this moment in time. So let's talk about what are some of those other trial types. So we can also do a little bit more a more detailed trial. And so these are those other types of assessments. And so if you look at this chart on the right here, so on the right, it says observe the person, but we're just going to call that learner. So in our case, it's an animal. So on the right here is what Al was describing about the free operant situation, where we just maybe have the animal in its environment. We've maybe created an environment where there's lots of opportunities for the animal to just go and engage with those things. Or maybe those things are just, we don't have those things set up in the environment. It's not contrived. We're just observing our animal and seeing what it engages with. So we've got those two conditions there, and we just kind of observe and kind of take note of how long the animal engages with those things, what kind of level of interest it shows based on things that we could measure. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But then we can also set up some real specific trials. Hi, Caitlin. And these are some of the things that Adrian was talking about. So we have some 4 different conditions here. So we have a single stimulus preference assessment. So what does that mean? So that means we can take that one item and we can measure different aspects of engagement. So let's say it's how long the animal engages with it. Maybe how many times it touches it, how many times it looks at it. If it's a mammal, maybe how many times it sniffs it. Maybe, how hard does it bite it or touch it or move it around. So, it depends on what we're looking at. Maybe it's a toy. Maybe it's getting involved in all those head scritches. So that's just looking at one specific stimulus. Now, if we wanted to look at a paired stimulus preference assessment, we're talking about 2 items compared to each other. And you can measure how much the animal engages with these either one. So we're going to provide 2, and we're going to say, oh, it went for this one, and then that's the one that it preferred over the other one, right? In a multiple stimulus without replacement assessment, we're going to have several items available, and then with replacement, we're going to have several items available, and the animal's going to choose one of those, and then we take everything away, and then we are going to replace the item that it selected. So now there's still, say there were 4 items, then we're going to still have 4 items when we present another trial. So there's the animal's always picking one of 4 items as its preferred, and then we get to rank which ones are, which one gets selected more frequently. And I'll show you a video on an example. And then in a multiple stimulus without replacement, basically after it chooses one, we take that item out of the selection process. And so we keep reducing how many are left to choose from. And so they all are different options, and they all have pros and cons. So let's look at a video example of the multiple stimulus with replacement, so you get an idea. And this is with a kid, so you can kind of get an idea of how it works.
Your choices are car, marker, squishy, penguin. Pick one. You chose squishy. stamps. Let's see all four. Poker, stamps, squishy, Play-Doh. You chose stamps. I can help. Oh, that is tricky. Here you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for saying thank you.
Ooh. Push, push, push.
Push. A foot.
Look.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Your choices are car, marker, stamps, putty.
Putty.
You chose putty.
It's so sticky.
It's so sticky.
Al, you are so right on. Actually, when you look at the material about this, that's what one of the things they say, that this particular stimulus assessment is really good for identifying things like toys. So very good. And Adrian says, love the excitement with his feet when he makes the stamp. Yeah, I think I really liked this video. There were other ones I looked at that I was like, I didn't like so much because when they took away the toys, you could see the child was not very happy. But I think that's a really interesting thing to look at in applying some of these things. When we think about animals, there's definitely some pros and cons, which we'll go over in some of these, and so things for us to think about as animal trainers. I want to show you the one without replacement, and again, keep your thoughts going on this as how you might think about where it's applicable to animals. So here's one with a child without replacement.
All right, so now we're going to do a multiple stimulus without replacement, and we have some of his toys lined up here. So Carson, which one would you like to play with? So typically we would let him play for about 30 seconds and then we'll say, all right, my turn. Thanks, bud. So now I have it and I'm not going to put it back into the array. I'm going to say, all right, what would you like to play with? And he chose the Beyblade. And again, we'd let him play with it for about 30 seconds. And then after 30 seconds, I would say, all right, my turn, thank you. And we do this so on and so forth, ranking them. So for this one, this was his most preferred object. That was number 2. And then it would continue down the line until they were all gone.
Okay. So hopefully you could see how that might allow someone to rank things. Now, one of the things that's really helpful with that particular strategy is it works well when you can't replace the item. And you may think about when that might be happening when we're ranking items. I'll let you think about it a little bit. And we'll talk a little. When does that happen when we're testing stuff? I'll let you think about it a little bit, and then we'll talk about these pros and cons of each method. I know it happened. I'm going to show you a video with my dog here in a minute, and we'll talk about it. And we'll talk about these pros and cons while you're thinking about it. So some pros and cons. So when we're using the multiple stimuli without replacement, some pros, you're likely to identify lots of reinforcers. And some of the cons. We're going to talk about these cons here. Think about, yes, with food. Yes, Rocky Roach got it. Yeah. So with food, like if you had a bunch of food items out there, the organism or learner is going to eat the food. And so you can't replace it very easily, right? So the food item's gone. So that's where it's a really that one without replacement works well when you're testing food items, and you'll see that with my dog here in a minute that we're going to do. So one of the things that we're going to talk about here is bias, and how does bias happen in these trials. And so when I show these videos of my dog and testing out some stuff with my dog, I'll let you kind of identify the situations in which bias can happen. And so I don't want to like jump ahead right now and identify these cons right now. I'll let you look for them. So with the paired stimuli, some of the pros is, again, you can identify multiple potential reinforcers. Again, we have some bias that's possibly can happen, and it can be really time consuming because you keep having to pair. You keep having to compare this item to that item, then another 2 items, and then another 2 items, and then another 2 items. And Caitlin's already identifying some of the situations where the bias can happen, how close the item is to the learner, because that might be the first item that it chooses versus another one that's far away. With the single stimulus assessment, again, you can potentially identify multiple reinforcers, potential reinforcers, but again, it's gonna take a long time because you're doing one after another, after another, after another. You can get false positives, is what they're noting, and it really, kind of depends on what you're measuring. You need lots of comparison, and again, what are your measures? Are you measuring duration? All that kind of stuff. The free operant situation is a lot easier to implement. It doesn't take a whole lot of time necessarily, but you might be less likely to get lots of reinforcers identified, or potential reinforcers. And Adrian's talking about the bias situation, the colors and the shape, and I think that's a really good thing to notice as well. And I think you'll see that the potential for that, I'll say, with the examples I'm going to show you with my dog. So let's look at a video of some things I did with my dog. So the first one I'm going to show you, so this is a multiple stimuli without replacement setup, and I've got 4 food items that I test, and then once I've kind of ruled out one of them that he doesn't even go for, I start testing just 3 food items. And I'm basically trying to figure out which is the most preferred, then, second, and then third, and then fourth. Obviously, I rule out number 4 in this first video. So I have, I'll show you the video, and then, kind of look for some of the things that and I'm trying to, in the first video, I'm trying to set up some different situations so that I can avoid bias, but you can probably still see some things that create bias. I can probably talk over it. So I've got carrot. I've got a piece of a dental chew that I know he likes. There's chicken. And there is just a kind of a dog treat that he likes. And the white things are, I've wrapped each of them in some paper. The color of the background for the dog could make a difference. And I will say that bowl is one that he eats out of on a regular basis. Contrast, yep. And I've put a little letter on the pieces of paper so that I know which piece of paper had what food item in it. Direction of approach, for sure, could create bias. Does it make a difference what he encounters first if he doesn't explore everything first and then choose? Well, sure. I think what he encounters first could create a bias. Easier to access food in the bowl than the paper. Did you get this one? Okay, looks like you did. So now I'm kind of determining if he ate what was in the paper, and if he did, what was in the paper. Treat. Reinforcement history, yes. So that was the bowl. So the bowl has reinforcement history. So I was kind of curious to see if he might go to the bowl first, or the things that were closest to him first. He does have history with taking things out of paper because of enrichment items that I've created for him. And how often he eats off the ground too. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because he does get enrichment items that he plays with in that room. So he does have a history of eating things off of the ground. Good point. Okay, so let me yes, so you guys talked about a lot of things there. So yes, I was concerned about things like, the chicken is quite white compared to the dark treats. The fact that he would encounter some of those treats or food items first before he encountered other food items. Yeah, what about the contra freeloading? Sure, it went out the window right there, that whole notion. That's a whole nother discussion. He has lots of reinforcement history for destroying. I take cardboard boxes and stuff them with newsprint and treats all the time. So he has lots of reinforcement history for that, but he didn't care about that, right? And that was after he had already had breakfast. So, there was absolutely, not a lot of... high interest in eating right then. Those were all preferred food items, except for obviously the carrot, offered after breakfast. So shortly after breakfast, that was probably like around 10 or 11. So I think that was also interesting. That's a whole nother live stream discussion, isn't it? But yeah, so I think there were a lot of things there that come into play to think about. So, what were things more easily notice because in terms of vision? Were things more easily noticed in terms of smell? Do things have reinforcement history, like being in the food bowl? So all those things were things for me to think about. So we have to be careful about location bias. Try not to place items in a specific order. That will make it more likely the animal will orient towards a specific location. So we have to randomize the location of our items as much as possible. Satiation, good point, right? Yeah. So avoid offering the same item from the hand or place that has the most reinforcement history. So that would be probably the food bowl. So again, we have to remember to randomize. If you were somehow involved, so I purposely had him in the bedroom. And I set up everything, and then I opened the door and let him come into the room so he couldn't see me setting things up. We also want to avoid pointing or tapping or prompting engagement with items when there are multiple items available, as this can skew your outcome. So animals can learn to orient towards the last item you touched or moved or placed. So that's why I had him out of the room. And then, as was pointed out, preferences can change with the learner's age, the time of day, social interactions, deprivation and satiation levels, and the presence of establishing operations. So that's the reason why I have the coati here. This coati had a skin condition that made him really receptive to scratching. He loved scratching because he was itchy. So that can change a receptiveness to scratches. So we have to monitor the activities prior to assessment to avoid bias due to changing motivating operations. And so we also want to avoid going off hunches. We want to actually collect data. So the nice thing about videotaping that is I could actually collect data on all this. So we're going to look at a couple more videos, and then I'm going to tell you the data that I collected. So, so just out of curiosity, I also put all the food items in different groups of 3, I think, or 4. I can't remember. I think I eliminated the carrot because he never went for the carrot. And then I kind of switched the order of the different items, and I kind of went to see which items he ate first or second or third, and then I also put them in a circle, or kind of randomized in a circle to see if there was any difference in what he ate first. But again, you can see there's going to be some location bias based on where he entered the room, probably, right? I mean, it's easier for him to go straight line to the ones that were right in front of him. Okay. And then we'll look at the other video in which I tried to place things in sort of a randomized circular pattern. But again, he's still going to have some side bias, probably, to some extent. And again, I think the contrast is really interesting because even though I did get some results, there's still one more piece of food he hasn't gotten yet. But it's dark. But it also turns out that the last piece of food is, in all the counting I did, was probably the least preferred. So in the first arrangement, he ate the chicken and what I call just the dog treat and the dental chew. And I will point out that I tried to cut the pieces in about the same size. But if you think about the chicken is thicker than the quote dog treat. The dog treat there's the same length, but it's flatter. So I tried to, he ate the chicken, the treat, and the dental chew first at equal frequency from the different arrangements. So it seemed they were about equal in value. But in the second arrangement, he ate the dental chew first 4 times. He ate the chicken second 4 times, and he ate the treat third 4 times. So it kind of seemed like the dental chew was the preferred item, and the chicken was the second in that ranking, and the treat item was third. Speaking of my dog. But in the third arrangement, I basically just timed which, where in the timeline did he eat things. And he ate all the chicken in 21 seconds, in the first 21 seconds. And then he ate all the dental chews by 35 seconds. And then he ate all the treats by 1 minute and 19 seconds. So he definitely ate the chicken first. And then he kind of, ate a few dental chews within that first 21 seconds, but by 35 seconds, he had eaten all the dental chews. And by the end, he had eaten all the treats. So it seemed like chicken was preferred in my third one. But for me, I would definitely want to repeat all this several times over to be a little bit more accurate, and kind of randomize things a bit more. And probably for me, the one that seemed most telling was my circular arrangement and the time. Could the odor of the item and how strong it is have an influence on where the dog goes first? Yeah, I think that's also another thing that, has a bias to it. And that's, so I think the visual contrast and also the odor could have an impact on it as well. So I think that's why I kind of was interested in, some of those other things that I did to see if that would change some of his behavior and choices. And I also think, as he was starting to satiate, that was changing some things as well. So that's why I think it would be fun to try some of these over, like a period of time instead of all at once, because I did these all at once, back to back to back to back. So I think those are all really good things. I'm glad you guys are bringing those up, because those are all things that I think can create some semblance of bias. I want to show you the fourth test that I did, because I think it's interesting watching his body language. And again, I only did it once. And again, I kind of threw in a little monkey wrench by asking for a different behavior in the middle. And again, because I only did it once, I tested the food items in a specific order. And I think it would be really good to test them in different orders, randomized orders later on. So what you're going to see in this next video is I ask him to do behaviors. So now we're out of the realm of stimulus preference assessment. We're actually seeing these items work as reinforcers, right? So when we're doing a stimulus preference assessment, we don't know if they're going to be reinforcers or not, because we haven't used them to reinforce behavior. So now I'm actually using these to reinforce behavior that the animal already knows. But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at how he eats the item after he does the behavior, and I offer the item for doing behavior. I'm also looking at his body language as he's emitting behavior. Is he excited about doing the behavior, knowing that this is the reinforcer that's coming? But keep in mind, like I said, I think I offer him chicken first. And then I think I say it in the video what I offer. So what I'm looking at is his body language and his response to the item that I'm offering. And I see a difference in each of the behaviors and each of the responses when I offer the different reinforcer. However, it may be different if I did it in a different order the next time I do it. So I would want to compare this over time. So let's take a look at how he responds. All right, you ready? Okay. Good. Good. Okay. Over here. Good. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was chicken. Let's try something else. Different behavior. How about, you ready? Okay, I know you're so good. Good. Down there. Good. Good. Go down there. Good. Okay, that was the treat, the normal treat. Okay, this one. You ready? All right. Okay. It also takes them a longer time to chew the dental chew, which is just the nature of that food item. Oh, sorry, that was my bad. I'm looking at the camera. And that was the dental chew. So I don't know if his, reduced enthusiasm is just because we are now have done a few reps of behavior. He might have been more excited because it was just the beginning of the training session as opposed to his response to the food item. So that would be an interesting thing to test, right? So, because you can see, a little bit more tail waggy, a little bit more excited here at the beginning. And that's where I was using the chicken. But I don't know if that's really a reflection of it being chicken or if it's just, hey, we're training, woohoo, So that would be a fun thing to evaluate to see if it's really about the reinforcer or if it's just about doing behavior. Because it, as I said, it looks a little reduced to me as we start moving through the different food items. But don't know for sure, right? We're going to have to do a few more assessments there. So going back to our results here. So my fourth test is moving into a combination of reinforcer assessment and also looking how animal engages with those stimuli. Okay, so let me move on to some other things that we were talking. We talked about all of our pitfalls, right? So Chris says, I wonder if the time it takes to eat the treat matters. Maybe there's more enthusiasm for something that tastes good and takes longer to enjoy it. I suppose we could analyze this to death, huh? Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The chicken doesn't take as long to eat, but the dental chew definitely does take him a while to eat, and he slows down and he concentrates on that. So it'd be really fun to take video of those things and evaluate that. But I think I would have to do it over time. There'd have to be time in between those training sessions for me to get more accurate data on that, I think, to really know what's going on there. So that's why I have this avoid going off of hunches. I would have to collect data for accuracy because if I just went, oh, yeah, he likes chicken best after just that one thing, I think that would be not accurate, because to be honest, when I started collecting the data just after that one, my head would have been like, oh yeah, chicken's the best. But when I started doing the numbers, I started seeing that the dental chews were being picked quite frequently, and that really surprised me. I was like, oh, I didn't realize dental chews were as cool as chicken. And I usually give him the stick like this. I don't usually cut it up into small pieces like I did for this particular little assessment. And so it was really interesting to see that response for me, but the numbers were telling me this information. So I was like, I need to look into this more. So that's the fun thing about collecting the data like that. And it'd be fun to explore with a whole bunch of other things. So why should we do all this? I think it's really cool to be able to rank our potential reinforcers. And one of the things that that I certainly have done, especially when I'm at a facility, when sometimes I'm trying to get a really long training session, is it can allow us to extend our training session by starting with least preferred reinforcers first, and then we work up to our more high value reinforcers. And Caitlin says this might vary from breed to breed as well. My pups don't have a strong jaw. Yeah, for sure. Right now my guy's up there in age, so he can handle the dental chew. And it also allows us to selectively use high-value reinforcers for difficult approximations or behaviors. And so if I know that chicken or dental chews is a really highly preferred item, I can use that for those challenging behaviors. And it also gives us an idea of the variety of potential reinforcers available to us. And as we know, variety can be helpful as well, especially in our strategies for creating behaviors resistant to extinction. So when we're in that maintenance mode and we're trying to keep things going for long duration, we can use our variety of reinforcers as well. So I really find value in knowing, and it's nice to have the data that can help us with that. So I showed you, I want to go back to this chart just in case you guys want some more. Where is it? Nope, this one. So the pros and cons chart. So this chart comes from the Cooper book. Any of you guys that are interested in reading more about that. So you can get more detail about those pros and cons from the Cooper book. Well, let me give you the this one if you haven't. There we go. If you don't have that book, so you can get more details on that in that book there. Although there's lots of stuff on stimulus preference assessment out there if you do a little looking around. All right, so I think, oh my gosh, I think I covered all my videos and all that fun stuff. So I'm actually going to go to the recap here, believe it or not. This is kind of a fast one. So preference assessments, stimulus preference assessments can help us determine what stimuli may act as reinforcers for behavior. Remember, we don't know that they reinforce behavior until we've actually, done some behavior and offered these potential, these stimuli as potential reinforcers. There are several different ways we can conduct assessments to determine potential reinforcers. This includes just observing your animal and measuring engagement with naturally existing stimuli or contrived stimuli. We can also create trials to measure engagement with single stimulus, a paired stimuli, and multiple stimuli, which is mostly what we focused on is the multiple stimuli in this case. Using different assessment methods may help provide the most accurate representation of a potential reinforcer ranking. And so, you can use a combination of all those things that we talked about there. So you might start with observing, and then you may take some of those things that you've observed and maybe try one of these multiple stimuli assessments. When running assessments, be careful to avoid creating bias based on location or by prompting or that reinforcement history, and think about the establishing operations that may precede your testing right then. And be sure to collect data. I think that was one of the fun things for me is by, actually counting some things. I got some information that surprised me. And remember that rankings can shift over time. Assessing regularly can ensure data is current and accurate. And have you set up, Al says, have you set up an assessment for non-edible items? I think most of my assessments for that kind of stuff has been more through the free operant situation where I'm observing animals. And so I think if you look at a lot of my courses where I talk about identifying non-food reinforcers, I'm mostly observing animals in free operant situations and going, oh, that animal just engaged with its reflection. Oh, that animal is scratching up against a post. Or, oh, that animal is sniffing at that, spot over there. And so a lot of times I'm identifying reinforcers that way. I haven't necessarily ranked them based on that, but I've definitely used the free operant setting to identify things. So, but I haven't yet done rankings, I don't think, but now I'm intrigued, right? So let's see. Remember, it's not a reinforcer until it has been shown to increase behavior. At this stage, it's just a preferred stimulus, an appetitive with the potential to reinforce behavior. So it'd be really fun, as Alice pointed out, if more of us try some of these assessments, especially with our non-edible items, but we can certainly do it with our edibles. I think those are really fun. So with that, I might go into some of our fun things that we got going on here. So I was recently at the ZAA conference, the Zoological Association of America, and they had a really great vendor setup this year. I met so many really incredible vendors, and that inspired me to update my Choosing the Right Scale course for those of you that are members of animaltrainingfundamentals.com. And so I've added a really great resource for custom scales there, and this guy had such great information. So if you are a member, do check out the downloads there, because you'll find a great resource there for making scales that are flush with your floor, that don't have any wires, that don't need electricity, that have custom surfaces. So you just have to go there to check it out. It's pretty cool. I also wanted to mention that I had a lot of great support there at the conference, so that was great. Practiced a lot of avoidance to not escalate things. And right now I have a court date set for mid-February, which I'll probably be, I know I'll be in Florida to determine next steps on this. In the meantime, I'm still discussing with my lawyers what some things I can share with you. We're working on that, so once I have some updates on that, I will be sharing some more information. We do have a Tower Talk next week for those who like to chit chat about animal behavior and training over Zoom. And I did want to mention that you can give memberships to animaltrainingfundamentals.com as a gift. Just send me a message at this email where it's at barbarasfat.com, and we can make that happen. And if you are not a member of animaltrainingfundamentals.com and you want to become one, we're still doing our 25% off. Just use the code sunglasses. And I think that's it. I think we did it. We're ending a little bit early this week, but there you go. I guess it's kind of bouncing back into the whole swing of things after a busy week of conferencing and talking to people and visiting zoos and getting my feet back under me and doing a lot of catching up on emails and assignments and writing and blah. So there we go. Glad you all could join me. I hope it was kind of an interesting one this week. And we've got two more weeks till the holidays. I don't know. I can't recall now. I have to look at a calendar. All right, guys. I hope to all see some of you next week. See some of you at our Tower Talk, and I guess that's it for now. We're going to end a little bit early this time, and I look forward to catching up with you all again next time. And let me know if you do some assessments and if you've done some rankings of different preferred items or experiences that your animals like to engage with. I'd love to hear how it goes for you all. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me on this Monday, and I look forward to seeing you again next week, because, yes, I'm around, and we're not at the holiday just yet. So, all right, guys. All right. Bye from Las Cruces. Yes. All right. Yes. Al's in Mexico now, New Mexico now. All right, guys. I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me. Take care. Yay! Yes, let me know how it goes. I want to hear how it goes if you try some of these out. All right, take care, everybody.